I think most of us know how hard it is to convince anybody of our perspective. It's just a very difficult thing. What storytelling does, or what narrative can do, is shift the arena, shift the parameters of the conversation by bringing something more interesting. Don't play with the terms that they've set. Say, actually, this issue is not about X, it's about Y. And now you've shifted the conversation to a completely different space, perhaps a space in which you have not just the truth, but the moral authority and the backing of the stakeholders who can say yes, and that creates, now they're on the defensive as opposed to you being on the defensive. So I always think it's better to tell a more interesting story, a story that more people can relate with, a story that is very clear morally. Most people know the difference between right and wrong, even if we have disagreements about how to get there.
Welcome to the Mongabay newscast. I'm your co-host, Mike DiGirolamo, bringing you weekly conversations with experts, authors, scientists, and activists working on the front lines of conservation, shining a light on some of the most pressing issues facing our planet and holding people in power to account. This podcast is edited on Gadigal land. Today on the newscast, we speak with Tsering Yangzom Lama, a published author and the story manager at Greenpeace International. In a recently published book by Patagonia, Tools to Save Our Home Planet, Lama has written an essay on how to reject dominant narratives. In this conversation, she explains what dominant narratives are, how they shape our society and environment, and how we might counter or reject ones that harm our planet and human rights. She explains why simply using logical appeals or facts and figures isn't enough and can backfire by reinforcing inherently false narratives. Instead, Lama urges reframing the debate entirely, using the power of story to directly appeal to people's morals and emotions. Ultimately, she explains why the end goal isn't just to change the narrative around how humans perceive nature or the environment, but to change the method and conditions of our politics. Whether you're an activist, a public communicator, or not, Lama's points have many applications for anyone's life and creating the world they want to live in. Tsering, welcome to the Mongabay newscast. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here.
So this essay that you've written, it contains a lot of detail on countering narratives, which is what we're going to talk about today. And right out the gate, when you wrote this, you nailed something that I have long felt really strongly about, which is that we experience the world through stories. Now, to me, this essay was one of the most convincing guides on how to counter or reject dominant narratives, which is something I think is really incredibly important right now at this moment. And so I wanted to hear you expand on it. Can you tell our listeners what exactly is a dominant narrative and what is a harmful dominant narrative about biodiversity or conservation that you feel is crucial for people to understand?
Sure. Yeah. So a dominant narrative, it actually depends on who's defining that dominant narrative. It's, you could ask somebody on the right in MAGA America, and they might feel that they are facing a dominant narrative that vilifies them in some way. So from the perspective of environmental or social activism, a dominant narrative in reality would be anything that supports the status quo. Right. So what we have right now is a system in which we're trashing the world, in which a small minority is profiting off of that destruction, and in which the vast majority of humanity does not have the basic necessities for a dignified human existence, not to mention all the non-human beings who are also facing a lot of hardships as a result of our current economic and social system. So from my perspective, dominant narratives are everywhere. They are, quite innocent. That's the thing with dominant narratives. It's hard to almost see them because they're so prevalent. So for instance, this idea of perpetual growth, that's a dominant narrative that is in that has permeated the world. Whether or not it's come from that part of the world, it's permeated the world because of modern industrial capitalism. And so we seem to believe that we always need more to be happier. And you see that in homes, and you see that in governments, and you see that in economic systems. So these are things that we can kind of identify if we really pay attention. And I believe that we can begin to counter them and perhaps shift them if there is a societal level awakening and a rejection of these concepts. So the idea is basically like, what are the beliefs undergirding a society or a group of people that lead to emotions and actions and eventually structures that support that belief being reinforced over and over and over again when it seems eventually like that's the truth, but it's not, it's a belief.
Hey, and thanks for tuning in to listen to the first few minutes of this interview. There's a lot more to it. So if you want to hear the full conversation, find the Mongabay newscast wherever you get your podcasts from and click subscribe. You can also get each new episode straight to your inbox by subscribing to Mongabay's weekly newsletter at mongabay.com. If you really want to help support us, you can also donate to us at patreon.com/Mongabay. Don't forget to leave a review. And thank you, as always, for listening.